Good afternoon, you Mavericks. I am so excited today because we are talking about sandwiches, the sandwich generation, and some pickles. It's serious.
Yes, we are.
I'm Francis, your Chief Curiosity Maverick, and I'm here with the ever Catherine Wells, our Chief Inspiration Maverick, and we are your Mavericks of Senior Living.
That's hysterical.
I want to hook them in. We got to test it. Let's have some fun.
Hey everybody, welcome back. And we are here with Jill Eelkema, a private case manager. She is the kind of person that you will go to if your parents are aging and you don't know what to do and you have questions. And I know many of you do. So welcome, Jill. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So I am a social worker, and my business is Western Care Partners, and I guide families who are trying to figure out where to start when they have somebody who they love that's getting older or who needs extra help, and sometimes somebody who's younger with a disability. And they are trying to navigate this whole maze. It's like learning a new language, and I help them understand what's out there and then make decisions to move forward.
That's a good way to say it. It is very much like learning a new language. There's so much to understand because I've been at that point in my life where it was really on the starting end and didn't know what to do and just kind of, I don't know, we figured it out, but it would have been a lot easier to have someone give us a little bit of a lay of the land. So how do people normally come to you, and what sort of state are they in when they come to you?
That's a good question.
Always, yeah.
Well, first of all, everybody has parents, right? And so a lot of times people are coming to me via word of mouth. People care a lot about their friends when they realize they are in the sandwich generation, which doesn't necessarily come with a pickle.
Yep. If you like pickles, which I love pickles. We've just learned that there are some people who don't like pickles. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, and they give me a call. I always do a brief free consultation just to see if I can get people pointed in the right direction and figure out, where they're at and where we can move forward. And I help them make decisions.
So we are talking about sandwiches, and the intro is all about sandwiches and pickles. But I really want to know is let's tell them what a sandwich generation is, why we're using that term. So Jill, could you kind of define or put a little bounds on what the sandwich generation is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that we have generational cohorts, and so throughout our lifespan, we are going through these historical events.
Okay.
And because these historical events are happening when we're at certain ages, then we become this generation that's typified by where we're at in our lives, where we're at in history, and then where we're at in our roles in the family. And so a sandwich generation usually means that we have kids that are probably high school or college age.
Okay.
We ourselves are in our 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s.
Okay.
And then we have parents who we often become the care partners with, and they're older.
Oh, I appreciate that term.
Yeah.
Care partner.
Care partner, I like that.
And it is the sandwich because you have kids at home, you have parents you're taking care of or with, and then you have your life in between.
You try to.
Try to have your life
Don't
in
become
between.
invisible, right?
Yeah.
And that's what, my own mother is probably the epitome of that. My grandmother's 92. She has 3 kids. We're all married. We all have kids of our own, so she has grandkids. So she's really stuck between visiting grandkids, seeing grandma, spending time with my dad, her husband, and she gets pulled in, I'd say, I don't know, a million directions, I feel like, because she doesn't know where to navigate, and then she does things with, let's say, my grandmother, but she wants to be with her grandkids, she feels guilty, and then then she's not with my grandmother, she feels even more guilty. It's I feel like she can't win. So so I'm really curious about what can we do to help them? Are there any tips or tricks we can give them to help lessen some of that? I know it won't go away, but I feel like I just want to help my mom, and I genuinely don't know. I give her advice, but I don't know if it's any good.
I want to say something about what you just described about your mom because we're talking about the sandwich generation. You added another layer This is like a double decker. I'm not kidding. You added the
Oh, the
grandchildren.
grandkid. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
And that is something that many of us didn't have to deal with who were in the sandwich generation. As our longevity increases, now we have a double decker. All right, I'm sorry. So,
No, that's
Francis asked the question, what are some helpful ways to point people to assistance?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing none of us want to become, right, is helicopter kids, because you're talking about, we all know what a helicopter parent is, and those helicopter kids, none of us want to feel like we're offering help that's not wanted. We want to be useful. We want to be respectful, and we want to kind of respect the roles that we're in as kids and as parents. And so some of those pieces are starting with asking what's worked in the past. What have you tried? What's somebody's social capital? Who do they already know? Who's in their life? And trying to be open and curious versus getting into that problem-solving mode. I mean, I can connect you to resources all day long, but if you already have something in mind, that's a way easier way to help you get some assistance.
Path of least resistance for them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does that include bringing in like caregivers or care partners into the home? Does that include, is that all part of that assistance?
Yeah, so I think when you're working with a private care manager, they're looking at the whole, and that's social work, they're looking at the entire system, and they're figuring out, okay, where do you live? What are your resources? What's your social capital? What's your financial capital? What's going to work for you? Do you need somebody coming into the home? Are you thinking about a move? Are you considering, maybe stopping driving? I've definitely held family meetings where we didn't ask these questions early enough in the discussion, and we're trying to see if the person wants to consider some alternative transportation. We get to the end, and I say, well, how long were you planning to keep driving? And the person says, I was thinking of quitting on Tuesday. You're like, we just spent an hour and a half, and you'd already made the decision.
Yeah.
Because we forgot to ask.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you forgot to talk about the person that was in the room, basically, kind of?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Exactly.
So, it's interesting because we do jump to our conclusions, especially as kids, the adult children. Yeah. We do tend to assume what our parents may or may not want and not always ask the question. Yeah. It's good. Because we have history. We have relationships. We decide these things.
And go ahead.
And I was going to say, and at the same time, once we leave home, families aren't really trained in how to make decisions together.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one.
And this might be a little bit of a tangent, but what about the role reversal? What about the going from being a child to almost being the authority figure, decision maker? I mean, I've talked with my mom extensively about that, and she's like, that feels weird.
It does feel weird. I've been in that role.
To me, I can't even begin to fathom that. Like, that's a great point. Like, all of a sudden, you're responsible for your life, your parents' life, your kids. All of a sudden, to me, just is...
It's hard, and I know you have some great advice. You're responsible for them, but they also are still adults.
Correct.
So, a lifetime accumulation of experience.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
So how do we manage that expectation and give the grace to the care partner? And how do we really manage some of that?
Well, so one piece that you were talking about is that role continuation, and we really want to be respectful of that. So where are the places that our parents still are in our lives, and we do look at that accumulation, that lifetime accumulation of experience, and not downplay every single thing and say, okay, now I've got to take care of you. But how are families taking care of themselves? What are the roles that you play? What does your mom think when you give her advice? Do you ask her questions versus getting into the problem-solving mode?
So if I understand that right, be more just there to listen versus always solve. And then from there begin to have a better discussion than a problem-solving approach?
Yeah, I think one thing, this wasn't what we were talking about necessarily, but one thing to keep in mind is what questions and how questions are open and curious. Questions that are close-ended questions and questions that begin with why tend to put people on the defensive. Oh. And so when I'm meeting with people, I'm like, okay, what about this? How does that work?
Even think
Where
about
is
That's
this
great.
shaky?
That's great.
I'm-
That
yeah.
right there is a fabulous tip for our listeners, because it's very easy. We get into our own habits of things, and to just know that and stop and really think about asking the question in a way that starts with how or what rather than why. And I can imagine someone asking me a why question and going on the defensive, especially when you're in that stage of life where you, I have a friend who's going out to visit their parents and have the first conversation like this. And I said to her, be patient with them, because right now they're in a, it's not fun to be where they're at.
Yeah.
And especially to have their own children coming and saying this. And we have to do it. It's not don't do it. It's be patient with them as well.
Yeah.
And kind and generous in the fact that they are probably feeling like people keep taking things away from them.
Yes.
I can't drive anymore. I can't live here anymore. I can't stand anymore. I can't, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. First of many, last, potentially.
And that kind of goes into that idea of your kids with the role reversal are now taking things. You're losing control and empowerment.
It can feel that way.
Right. To your kids, though. And I think that's part of the issue of how do you find ways, so, how do we really dive in and find out, how do we make this decision together, right?
Yeah.
How do we hear our parents, our grandparents, and their want, and balance that with that need aspect or that safety aspect? Because my guess is most kids are doing it out of a fear of mom or dad hurting themselves. Would that be a fair guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all out of love.
Yeah. So how do we kind of make those decisions together? And I'm going to use my grandmother as another example. Is my mom wants her to have more care at home. She has about 6 hours right now, like 9 to 3, I think. My mom has better peace of mind when she has either 12-hour care or 24-hour care.
Yeah.
But grandma hates it.
Yeah.
How do you balance that, or how do you make that decision together, as an example?
Yeah. Well, I think that's where, a private care manager can help you understand what the options are.
All
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And you got to be able to match that personality piece, right? Nobody wants, we're not used to sharing space. So having somebody in my space, what is that going to look like?
Okay.
And if the brain doesn't have a path for what this is going to look like, then our only control, our only power is we go back to just saying no. And we just dig in our heels versus, okay, here's what this could look like, potentially.
Yeah, and
Would you be
creating
willing
a
to give it a
picture for
try?
them.
We're going to try it for 60 days. Will you try it for 60 days?
I like
and you
that.
give the brain a path.
So you're almost like hyper-focused with an end in sight.
Yeah, and a way that it might look to them so that it doesn't feel so scary. It's not a blank slate. It's not. It's something they can wrap their minds around. That makes a lot of sense.
That's a really cool.
And what I really love about this is that so we've talked with people about what do you do when you are in this situation. What I really, really love is having someone who is a private case manager who's just working for you, not working for anybody else, no other things going on. They really are just there to educate and give you the information. And I can tell you, I started by Googling. And I'm sure most people do. And you start to Google and you get a lot of conflicting information. You get short little blogs that are very marketing blogs. Like, here's 5 things to do. That's great. And it's information, but having someone almost walk you through this from a personal perspective, you can see already some of the conversations we've had about finding that path. You're not going to find that on the internet, I don't think, in a very easy, succinct way.
No.
And these are the things that come up in the conversations. And that's why I always encourage people, great, Google, but don't make that your only resource.
And honestly, what I love about what you do, Jill, is you work for that family. It's not a community. It's not a health agency. It's nothing that all you care about is what's best for them. And that's, in the end, all that matters, right? It's what's best for our parents, our grandparents, our spouses. All that matters is they get the best care when they need it. That's it.
And to dovetail into that, the other piece is when you work with somebody who knows all the resources, then if something falls apart, you have the peace of mind of, I did what I could. And people still get to fail. People get to say no.
Okay.
I mean, we're not talking, if there's memory loss involved, at some point, sometimes families have to start making decisions for each other.
Of course, okay.
But if we're always looking for that feeling of, did I do everything that I could?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's some reassurance of, hey, if this doesn't work out, we're going to try something else. We
And-
can't predict the future.
Right. Do you find that helps reduce some caregiver guilt? Because I feel like that's a consistent theme I hear both from my own mother and from families that I've worked with
Mm-hmm.
is this caregiver guilt. Does that help with what
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah, because people want to know that they're doing a good job, but a lot of times they want to hear it from the person who doesn't want their help.
Right.
So
Oh, that's
sometimes
interesting.
Can you
get
say
it
that
from-
one more time? Because
Yeah,
that's really
that's an
interesting.
important-
Yeah, people want to know that they're doing a good job, but they want to hear that from the person that's probably the least likely to give it to them because they don't want the help at the time, or they're resistant, or they're scared of losing something.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, boy, I've stood in those shoes as well, and that's a rough place to be.
You're amazing for doing that.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. It's
Yeah.
you just do it because
Mhm.
you just do, and I think that our listeners can probably resonate. 10 years ago, when Mom was first diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I had no idea what my life was going to look like over the coming 10 years, and it changed quite a bit. And now that they have passed, they both passed last year, I have that mixture of grief and relief and did I do enough and all of those things. And so I'm saying this so that our audience knows this is normal. This is normal, and it's okay.
But I will add one thing. Your parents gave you the greatest gift. We're here today together because of your experience with them.
Yeah.
And that is probably the most powerful thing that you can take away from this is that
Thank
we
you.
wouldn't be connected, we wouldn't be doing this without them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it ignited
it's
my
true.
passion
Yeah.
and my interest. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I mean that.
Yeah, thank you. What, Jill, would you like our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Well, I think we were talking about that piece of it always being hard, right? There's those hard pieces. There's also some really sweet pieces that are hard to notice if you're in the mix of this and it's so stressful. Sometimes I'm talking with family members and asking them, why do you feel like you have to do all the hard things by yourself? Not that you listen to a therapy session. But
That's a good question.
Sometimes we just have this independence or this I'm the person who does this the best, and we have to let go and open that system so that there can be movement in it.
Yeah. Or my support system doesn't have time to help me with this. That's what I often felt. I can't ask my brothers. They're too busy. They have. Yeah. That is an excellent takeaway. I hope you all heard that out there. That is really, really important. Wow. One of the things we're loving to do is talk about who is a Maverick in your life. So who in your life has been a trailblazer, and how have they influenced you?
So that was a hard question to try and figure out, and so I was trying to keep it very concrete. And I don't know you guys very well, but I love the arts, and I love the potential for the way that our brains change and develop to be involved in the arts and creativity as we get older. I also have a passion for reducing ageism, and I think one person who's really a maverick right now is Heidi Wanger. She's a photographer with the Passions Project. And you guys should meet her. She's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's reducing ageism by taking pictures of people who are older doing the things they're passionate about. Because when we see somebody doing the thing that we also love, we form a connection that isn't based on our view of the person.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And she's just done some amazing work. She's in the Denver area.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
love
ask
that.
you for an introduction to Heidi. That sounds amazing, and I'm sure that our audience would love to hear from her.
Super powerful.
Oh, goodness. So, I am really inspired by the work that you do and the way in which you take families through this journey. I can tell in a very compassionate, kind way, with education and with helping them see things that they wouldn't see otherwise, or may not see otherwise, and may not know. So you're relieving their anxiety, and I can just tell what a warm person you are and how connected you are with people, and I'm really inspired by that. Thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
And as always, we're not only we're big on not just talking about what the challenges and the things that we face. We want to find out how can we create hope. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit. And how do you think you're creating hope for those that are aging?
Yeah, good question.
I know it's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's a good question. I think what the work that gets me out of bed in the morning is I'm opening up conversations with families, and I'm allowing them to hear what's not being said, so that they can really get to what's truly going to work for them and what's truly going to give them hope and peace and happiness.
Wow.
And stay connected, right?
'Cause that's key. Is the
Yeah.
You don't want that infighting, right? The connectedness of the family. They need to still be together and enjoy the time together, right? Not fighting amongst themselves or yelling or
Yeah. And sometimes that is the family dynamic, and sometimes that's the role. And if that disappeared, then we wouldn't be a family anymore. So but let's talk about that. Let's get that opened up a little bit more.
And what I hear in that is that every situation is unique.
Yes.
You can't put a cookie cutter on any of it, and you're creating hope by being able to step into that with whatever situation it is and help guide them. Oh, that's wonderful, cool. Jill. Boy, thank you so much for being here. If people want to reach out to you, how would they go about finding out about you?
Yeah, well, you're always welcome to call me directly. My phone number is 720-675-9902. And my website is westerncarepartners.com, and there's a contact us form.
And we'll put all that information in the comment section and share that with people to get more information on what you do and your services, of course. And then we also really, anybody, we want you to join the Maverick movement. Join us, like our page, follow us on our podcast, which is Challenging the Way We Age, and stay tuned for some more videos where we have, really tackle the challenges that we face as we're aging to age with more hope. That's really our goal.
Yeah, and tell us what you want to hear about. Tell us what topics you want us to talk about, and we'll go find the experts like Jill to come in and talk about them.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us today.
Have a great day.